Good evening, students. Welcome to the second session for Introduction to Law. Uh, can you please confirm if I'm audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Yes.
Okay. So we'll open up this session, and in the beginning, at the outset, if you have any doubts or questions or observations with regard to week one, which dealt with the trolley problem, and it was a general snapshot of what is required to think of a career in law. If there are any questions pertaining to that, then I would be happy to take before I progress to week two.
No, sir.
Great. So in today's session, we are going to look at constitutional law, and we are going to focus on fundamental rights in constitutional law. So I think at this stage you would be familiar with the fundamental rights that have been guaranteed by the Indian Constitution. These are right to equality, right to non-discrimination, right against untouchability, freedom of speech and expression, freedom of association, freedom of assembly, freedom of trade and practice, right to life, right against exploitation, uh, then freedom of speech, freedom of religion given to individuals, and freedom which have been given to religious institutions, cultural and linguistic rights. So you would be familiar with the broad taxonomy of fundamental rights. I'm hoping that, right? Let me just read the questions here. Utilitarian law is applicable than deontological law? This is asked by Anushka Chatterjee. So, if we look at utilitarian law, the concept of utilitarian law is also very broad and nuanced. Utilitarian theory does not only say that one will sacrifice what is an individual interest because the larger society wants it. Uh, is the person who asked the question, can they respond if they are here? Okay, but I'll just give you an example. If you are familiar with the thinkers who have spoken about utilitarian law in a manner which does not sacrifice individual voice or does not drown out individual voice because of the prevailing societal morality, then also J.S. Mill is one thing. And what J.S. Mill in his work on liberty has said is that the calculation of what is in the interest of society is not or is not set in opposition to what is in the interest of individual. Let me just explain this to you in this manner, then you will understand how utilitarian theory is also something that has not been discarded. But then you have to peg utilitarian theory at a higher level. I'll I'll speak about it through an example of freedom of speech. Freedom of speech, I am speaking because the general common sense or the intuitive perception that you would be having is this, that fundamental right to speech has been given so as to safeguard it against from societal morality drowning it out, which is that if I want to speak on an issue which is critical of the dominant societal morality, or if the society is deeply religious. But I want to speak about some of the practices that I think uh, it 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 jeopardizes or injures individual dignity. Then one perspective will say if we are applying utilitarian theory or the utilitarian principle, that voice, individual voice, should be curtailed because the dominant societal morality is deeply religious and would not want to accept voices which are critical of religion. But that is not the way in which G.S. Mill thought about utilitarian theory. So who are the thinkers in utilitarian theory? Bentham would be one. But then there is J.S. Mill. What J.S. Mill would say is this, that what is in the cumulative interest of the society is to look at that value and see what kind of society would we want to live in. So, for instance, it would mean that utilitarian theory does not mean that anything that is making the dominant societal morality uncomfortable at that point of time, that speech or that expression should be curtailed. What this means is this, that if we are living, if we are living in a country like India, where there are different identities, there are plural identities, and there are different kind of identities which undercut each other. For instance, there is not one dominant identity that is there in India. If you think you are a majority in terms of religion, then that religious, you being part of that religious majority, could be undercut by your language, which is, you might be a linguistic minority. If you think that your identity is cemented or protected because you are both a religious majority as well as a linguistic, belong to a linguistic majority, then also it can be undercut by ethnicity. It can be undercut by your political views. It could be undercut by the region that you belong to. It could be undercut by your gender or sexual orientation. It could be undercut by your caste identity. So what is the point that I am trying to make? The point that I am trying to make is singular, and it is this, that if we have inherited a plural society where there are multiplicity of identities, where even if you find yourself as a majority on one identity, it can be undercut by different ascriptive identity or non-ascriptive identity. Ascriptive identities are means identities that you have inherited, but there can be other identities. For instance, you could be you could be you could be belonging to political left. That is a non-ascriptive identity. You could also be you could also be immersed in a particular kind of music which most of the people don't hear or don't appreciate. So everyone is a minority on some index. So if I apply utilitarian theory, and if this is the makeup of the society, and if I ask you that should one be able to criticize a particular viewpoint which might not be in sync with the dominant morality, either on religion or on language or on ethnicity, then should it be allowed or not according to utilitarian theory? Then tell me this, if we are all part of this, and if we have to decide what is in societal interest where everyone is a minority on some index, what does the utilitarian theory tell you? There are two ways. One way, a utilitarian theory will might tell you that no, any voice which is critical will not be allowed. The other theory, utilitarian theory, which says that one has to look at greater good for greater number. And if you look at it in a wide temporality, the meaning of temporality is that if is means that time span, then don't you think that the majority members of the society would say that because all of one are minority on some index, then there the cumulative interest of the group is in allowing critical voices Because if we don't allow critical voices pertaining to religion, then it would mean that critical voices pertaining to linguistic majoritarianism will also not be allowed. Or it would also mean that if one is invested in a certain kind of political ideology or in certain kind of interest, that would also not be allowed. So the way of thinking about utilitarianism, according to J.S. Mill, which he wrote on liberty, is that it is in societal interest in a long term to protect voices that are critical of the dominant ideology, so that everyone feels that their expression will not be determined or predetermined if they belong to a majority or minority. The point coming from it is that if we think that all of us might be a minority at some point of time on some index which we have inherited or on which we have invested value in, then the cumulative interest of the society, don't you think, is in allowing freedom of speech? That freedom of speech or freedom of speech and expression, or the way you would want to behave in your personal domain without crossing the line of reasonableness, is something that can be culled out from a utilitarian theory also. So the point about utilitarian or deontological theory is also that it can give you the same result. But what you have to do is you have to clearly think that if we are creating a society in which is a multicultural society, then and if the society is aware of the multicultural nature of the polity or the public sphere, then the society might lend its support to expression of critical voices also, so that the people who are now making the rule, they are also given that freedom, and their freedom is not undercut by this. Because if you apply utilitarian theory in a very mechanical manner, then what does this leave you with? It leaves you with this, that there is a society in which there are different ways of being, there are different ways in which people have their opinion, but anything that is critical of any identity, because that is a number and one does not have a dominant majority. One can have a dominant majority in religion, but that does not mean one will have a dominant majority when it comes to caste or linguist or language or ethnicity or political ideology. That the society might want to create a public sphere or a polity where freedom of speech is protected. So deontological approach, utilitarian approach might take you to same results. It is dependent on how far, if how far ahead are you thinking of what is the makeup of the society. So it is not the best way to think about utilitarian is in a very in the sense of today, that today what makes me uncomfortable, I'll curtail it. Because the thing with something which is a principle or a theory is that you don't make a theory or a principle on what you feel today. It has a certain temporality about how you would want public sphere to be. And deontological approach can also take you to the same result. What deontological approach says is this, that human being cannot be treated as a means because they have inherent dignity and self-respect. So it would mean that they are not sacrificial lambs. If you take Mill's approach to liberty, which is taking as a certain kind of utilitarianism, then also it will take you to the same thing, which is that in a multicultural society, no individual would agree to a social contract for a political principle where there are chances that they might be minority on some index, where their expression or their part of being is curtailed on application of a very mechanical utilitarian principle. Is it clear?
Yes.
Oh. So let us now begin with, can someone tell me that what is right to equality?
Is one of the fundamental rights, I think, Article 14, that says right to equality before the law, which is does not mean that like all individuals have to be treated uniformly. It just means individuals in a similar situation get similar treatment.
Okay, very good. Individuals in a
Article 14.
Article
Yeah,
40.
equality before law is a fundamental right given to any person who is in India, not just a citizen. It guarantees equality before law and equal treatment of the law, and to treat equals equally and unequals unequally.
Great, great. Uh, do you also know that we have a fundamental right to non-discrimination?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
What does it say?
That's Article 15, I think.
Hmm. So all of you
And
have
oh,
internet, no? You can use internet. So if someone does not remember, then it will be a good idea to read it from the Constitution. If it is Article 15, what does it mean?
Sir, could you repeat? I couldn't hear you. Can you please be a
I'm
bit
saying
louder?
that can you give me the text of Article 15, which is right
One
to
second, sir.
discrimination?
Uh, so Article 15 says that prohibition of discrimination on grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth. Clause 1. The state shall not discriminate against any citizen on grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, or any of them. Clause 2. No citizen shall, on grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, or any of them, be subject to any disability, liability, restriction, or condition with regard to A. Access to shops, public restaurants, hotels, and places of public entertainment, or B. The use of wells, tanks, bathing ghats, roads, and places of public resort maintained wholly or partly out of state funds or dedicated to the use of general public. Clause 3. Nothing in
Okay,
this
okay, you can
article.
stop here. Thank you. I think this captures the essence of this. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So in today's class, so my what I want is that there's some things which we have read as a principle, but there is a deep theory behind all of this. So I'll ask you some questions, and I would urge you to respond to this because right to equality and right to non-discrimination is a fundamental right. Now, I just want a show of hands for people who think that right to equality is right to equality is something which is of good value in all circumstances. How many of you agree to that?
as in, could you elaborate a bit,
I'm
please?
saying that if I say that if there are two situations, I'm saying that in some
Mm.
situation I'm not treating people in an equal manner. Then is
Mm.
it a good thing
Yeah,
if I am not treating individuals?
yeah. In certain situations, that's a good
Or
thing.
what would be that situation?
For example, we have reservations for caste right now.
Hmm.
So,
Let's not enter
in,
that debate because unless we
okay,
are,
okay, okay.
let's think about it in a simple manner. That why do we have right to?
Suppose there's a race in the school,
Hmm.
and one person is a bit disabled than the others, so he gets a head start in the race, more time.
Okay,
So
so what
that
you are
is there.
saying is that so that is inherent in it, which is right to equality is meaning that people who are unequally situated
Hmm.
can be differentiated and they can be provided that support so as to bring them um, at an equal footing with rest of the citizens. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, let me just ask you this question. Uh, that suppose all of you, let's imagine that we are having this session in a classroom, physical classroom, right? How many of you are there? I can see 23 participants, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, suppose I come into the classroom and for some reason there are just 5 chairs that are there, right? And there are 23 of you. and there is protest made by the students saying that we need more chairs. And I say that I can only arrange for 5 chairs. There are no more chairs. And you say that the class will not go ahead unless all of us have chairs. Why will you say this?
Because everyone has a right to be comfortably seated in the
The-
class.
Which is that but what is the principle that you will invoke?
Right to equality.
Right to equality. What you will say, you will argue this? No. I'm just trying to go in a sequence. You will argue that all of us are students
All of us should be treated equally.
and all of us should be treated alike because if we have come to the class. And if there are
Precisely.
5 chairs, then this is unequal treatment, or this is inequality. If 5 people are seated and if rest of them are standing, because all of us, and here there is a point, all of you are students, so this is a uniform group, right? Because you said that equality, I'm taking it from what you said, that equality means that you treat a group which is uniformly situated in a uniform manner,
Yes.
Yes.
right? So how will the class proceed?
We would demand more chairs or
And
removal
I'll
of
say that no, I'm unable to do it.
Everyone
So
sits on the floor.
Yeah, everyone sits
remove
on,
all the chairs.
or everyone
Yes.
stands.
great. So hold on to this thought. If equality says that all of you has to be treated equally, if you are similarly situated, and if I say that okay, fine, I'll treat all of you equally, and this is your suggestion, that will remove these 5 chairs, then how does the classroom look? Is it better than what we started with, or are you all worse off? Because what have you done by your own suggestion?
We've made ourselves slightly more uncomfortable for the sake of equality.
All now, earlier, 5 people could have been better off, but now all are worse off. But I can tell you, I am treating all of you uniformly now. None of the people will have chairs.
So it's better now.
How is it better?
So now no one has to live with the feeling that someone else is enjoying at their expense, or that
Which is great. So this is how one will think of making a polity. So, which is now all of you have been made worse off in the situation that none of the people have chairs. And you are saying that in some strange way you are better off.
Sir, basically we all feel equality among, we don't feel disrespect or we.
Great. Now here I am bringing in the second thing. That
Sir,
that let me
I think
let me give you this example.
Okay.
Now there is a situation in which, suppose we take the example of a country like Iran or Syria, right? Any of these countries. There, suppose 99% of the people are below poverty line because it values equality. Some people who were at some who were able to advance and become something, the government says that no, I'm going to treat everyone uniformly. So there are examples of these countries, no, where the point that I'm trying to make is, does equality say anything about the kind of society that you would want to be a part of? I'll give you another example and think about it. How many of you are familiar with the Sabrimala case? Vaguely?
so is it that like women cannot go to the
Women, I think between the ages of
yeah
15 to 50 are
Yeah,
not
women
they
allowed.
cannot
were
enter the
I think Vaidehi has raised her hand. Yes, Vaidehi, go on.
Sir, I think women between the ages of 15 to 50 cannot enter the temple.
Okay.
I'm not sure
So
about the
there are
cutoff
these kind
ages.
of customs. in temples as well as in mosques. I'll speak about both. So
Okay.
suppose, but I'm giving it just as an example. Suppose there is a custom in a place which says that women who are in the menstruating age cannot enter a particular temple. And suppose there is a similar custom which says that women cannot enter certain shrines or cannot enter the inner sanctum of certain shrines because women are not allowed. Right? Suppose all of you are in a position of, and they say that, what is the claim? One of the claim, I'm not talking about religion. One of the claim is what? That if men can be allowed, then how is it that women who are menstruating are not allowed? In for some other religion, they will also say the same thing that all men are allowed into the shrines, but women are not being allowed. Now, suppose as a judge, in all of you are judge, and you take right to equality very seriously, and what you tell them is this, that okay, this is a claim of inequality. So I am telling that no one will be allowed in shrine, which is even men will not be allowed. Men will not be allowed in temple. Men will also not be allowed in shrines. And now is there parity between women and men? It's not very far removed from the example that I gave you about chairs. Is there equality or not?
Objectively,
Yeah.
Objectively, it is.
yes.
Yeah.
Now, have citizens been made worse off or have they been made better off?
Depends on the perspective, I guess.
So tell me the perspective where they have been made better off.
From the point of view of, say, a woman who is, I don't know, like 32, as in she's in the menstruating age, and because of custom, she was not allowed to enter
Hmm.
these temples and mosques.
Hmm.
And because of this law that a judge has passed, no, because of this judge's decision,
Hmm.
even men in the ages of 15 to 50 are not allowed.
Hmm. So
So, actually, no, sir, never mind.
think about it
They're
from the
not better
perspective
off.
of the woman. No, woman wanted to enter the temple. A
Yeah,
woman wanted to enter the shrine. Has
yeah,
her
actually,
position
no one is
changed?
better off.
So this is the beauty of law, that things that you have taken to be convinced, it allows you to look at the logic of it.
Yes.
Similarly, in a situation that I gave you, now all of you are sitting on floors. Earlier, there could have been arrangement that for 15 minutes, these 5 people will sit and then 5 other people will sit on chair. Now all of you are worse off because you wanted an access to a chair. And what I am going to say now, pay deep attention to it and then try and internalize it. Why is it that if you came into the classroom and said that you would want a chair, you wanted a chair because of equality, or you wanted a chair because you thought that there has to be a right to a chair? Similarly, if you said that we are not being allowed because we are women, then did the woman approach the court because they wanted access to the temple, or there was a fundamental right to enter the temple or the shrine, or did they want to say that no, I want to be treated at parity with men? So the point is this, and it's a deep point, but it's a very simple way in which I am saying it. Does right to equality say anything about the value or your right, which would mean in this case that why is it that that woman came to the judge or the court? Because they wanted access into the temple, no? Even if they said that even if we are menstruating women, but we belong to this religion, or in Islam, they would have said that even if we are women, we practice Islam, therefore we have a fundamental right to access the shrine. But if you treat equality as an isolated value and say that we have a fundamental right to be treated equally, it does not say anything about how you are to be treated, because you can be made equal by making everyone worse off, or you can also be made equal by addressing your situation and raising it to the standard that you would want. And there is a deep line of thinking from Joseph Ries to other philosophers who have said that equality is a vacuous right or a hollow right. Equality gets its meaning from some other value or fundamental right that is needed, and equality is a means to achieve that, which would mean in this case, in the example that I gave you about chairs, and think about it, wrong is not that you are being treated in an unequal manner. Wrong is that if you are a student, every student should have a right to a chair. And equality is a way in which one can say that we should all have a chair. Similarly, because all women who belong to different faith have a fundamental right of religion to enter their place of worship, that is a fundamental right. And equality is a means of achieving it. If you peddle equality to be a value in itself and say that, okay, you know what? Because what is wrong? Wrong is not that you are being treated in a different manner from students. Wrong, in fact, is that everyone should have a right to a chair. So what I'm doing with this example is a simple thing. That what does equality mean? This is something that you will have to think for yourself. My purpose was just to tell you that there are ways in which one can think about anything. And that is what we do in law. You always ask fundamental, very foundational questions. You are not a passive recipient of knowledge. And this was the way in which I upturned all your assumptions.
Yes.
I'll give you another example. If there is a if some we if suppose we are talking about, say, a particular country where there is a public health system, and public health system generally says that generally people can go and buy medicines at a very subsidized rate. In this example, suppose some people are there are some medicines which are always available at life-saving medicines which are always available for people. But there are other category of life-saving medicines where there is a scarcity. So there are two ways in which one can argue. There is one way in which one can file a right to equality claim and say what? That so there are citizens like us who have access to these life-saving medicines, but these are also the range of medicines which should be there, but the other group of citizens don't have an access to it. But the correct way of framing this is this, that it is not that you are being treated in an unequal manner that is wrong. What is wrong is that all of you have a fundamental right, under right to live with liberty and dignity, to have access to that medicine. And that higher fundamental right of you having access to medicines at very subsidized price is not being achieved. And this would mean that even as a citizens you are being, that if some of these citizens have it, then the other group of citizens should also be, then these medicines should also be made available. So the wrong here is not that you are being treated in an unequal manner. The wrong is if you can say that all of you as a citizen has a fundamental right to that medicine. And every theory should also have a practical application. What is it that if you think about just right to equality as a value in itself, I'm saying right to equality is valuable, but you have to combine it with some other thing and show that what you are demanding is a valuable thing or is a fundamental right, and right to equality is a mechanism in which one will speak about. Because in a polity or in a society, the resources are finite, and try and think about it. If you take right to equality to be an end in itself, what this will lead you, that if the resources cannot be equally divided, then the better option is not to give this resource to everyone, which is what the chair example is, no? And obviously what Amartya Sen says is that there are certain goods which are incommensurable goods, which can't be divided. So equality also has to, one cannot think of equality in a thin manner. That is why we think of equality as substantive equality, as prioritarian. Prioritarian means those people who need it the most will give them that first and will address the claims of people who might need it at a later point of time. Because if you treat equality to be uniform treatment of everyone who is a citizen, then these are the kind of situations in which you will end up being. That is why some of the thinkers have said that equality is a parasitic right, or equality is a symbiotic right, which is that it needs to travel on some other right. This is not to tell you, just as I give utilitarian theory, my purpose here is not to resolve these tensions with you. Another thing that you will understand about law, if you come to a law school, is this, that the job of a faculty is not to tell you what is the right answer. That journey you have to do on your own self. The job of a faculty is to just guide you that these could be other ways for you to think about it. Because if I tell you this is the right answer, your reasoning is not developed. The purpose is not to parachute you and to drop you on a predestination. The purpose is to tell you that have you thought about this question? What about this? The more questions that I put to you, the more clarity you will have. And in this way, you will reach that own destination with your own thinking. So the question of logic, the question of presumption is always very important in law. We take nothing to be as given, because that is a very then that becomes a very stagnant mind or an inert mind. I I was just telling you that things that you take to be valuable in all sense. There can be ways in which you can upturn some of the assumptions. It might take you to a different response, and all of you are able to reason it down. Okay. Now I'll ask you another question, and then uh, you have to respond. Suppose
Yes,
you
sir.
go, suppose you go to a shopkeeper and the shopkeeper here uh, and you want to buy a book, and you ask for, and the shopkeeper asks you your name. You said that my name is X or whatever, Ram or Shyam, whatever his name. You are engaging with the shopkeeper, and You ask what is the price for it. Shopkeeper says that 30 rupees. Then you give those 30 rupees to shopkeeper. And the shopkeeper says that no, I'm not going to give you this book. I don't want any business from you. Now, in this situation, do you think that you have been discriminated against? Can you say that your fundamental right to non-discrimination has been violated? The example is simple. You want to buy a book, the shopkeeper asks you your name, you give that name, he makes faces so that no, I'll not do business with you.
So technically, the people reserve right to who they have to serve or sell to, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Like a restaurant could choose to not serve a customer. I mean, it's morally
I'll
wrong.
make this for instance, they have a right. I'll come to that later. Give this a simpler example where this question will not arise from. Suppose you are, I'll take the same example. You are a student in a school, right? You go to your faculty and this is the first class, the faculty asks everyone's name and then the faculty tells you without giving reason, asks your name and says that you have to go out of the class. You can't attend this class. Now tell me this. Will you say that you have been discriminated against by the faculty? That the
Then,
faculty is
yeah.
asking everyone's
Yes.
name, the faculty makes a face when you tell your name, say that you go out.
Yeah.
I'll make it even simpler. That suppose yes, if this is the example, then this is exactly the same example that I gave you. First of all, when I am not telling you that these are angles that you have to bring in, don't bring in those angles. Whether what one has a right to do business or not, we have not covered that much ground that you can definitively tell me that one has a. We are on question of fundamental right. So now engage with this because all of you will say no that you have a right to be in the classroom. Is the example clear that all of you are sitting in the classroom? Is the first class, the faculty comes, asks your name, is asking everyone's name. You tell your name, the faculty makes a face and says that no, you go out.
Yeah, that's discrimination.
Will you say
Yeah.
that you have been discriminated?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Why have you been discriminated?
Because they decided to they told us to go out of the class simply based on our name. So that is the means of discrimination.
The nature of discrimination is based on religion because my name reflects my religion.
Why? Why does your name reflect your religion? Where does it say your name reflects your religion? If you have a first name,
Okay.
if someone says that my name is John or my name is Shyam, what does it say about religion?
A person whose name John is most likely to be Christian.
What is most likely is not important, no. If in 10 out of 6 cases the name John is associated with Christianity, can you claim that this is based on religion?
I mean,
Suppose my
we can't
name.
100%, we can't say for sure it's based on
So that
religion.
is why are you saying it is a discrimination based on religion?
That was an assumption I made.
So here, which is the example that I'm telling you. Also, you know that the identity when it comes to gender is also fluid. So there also one can't identify what is it that you are identifying with.
Sorry, sir, could you repeat that?
I am saying that I am asking the reasons for why it is discrimination. So this reason will not hold.
Yes.
That it is based on religion. Where is it? There are a number of names where you will not be able to invoke religion or no religion because India is very multicultural. There are a lot of names in Kerala or West Bengal which are taken by people from both religion because it is the language which is the dominant notion of identity.
Okay. Yes,
Yes,
yes.
Nitika. Why is it discrimination?
Sir, I would say that it would not be discrimination. My right to the right of discrimination would not have been violated because this child could have done something wrong and could be the reason why the faculty would have told
No, has
him or
not done
her to get
anything
out.
wrong. Has not done it. If he had done anything wrong, or he or she would have done anything wrong, I would have told you this. What did I say? That the faculty comes start asking the name, you tell your name, make spaces, and say that you have to go out.
What this is just an assumption. What if
Yes.
this like if this name was on the wanted papers, that could be a reason for the faculty to tell the child to get out.
I am just saying the faculty is being unreasonable. Let's just accept it. I am asking you to identify what is the fundamental right that has been violated.
Equality, Article 14.
Who said equality?
Anisa?
Yeah. So Anisa, tell me why it is violation of equality. So we are saying that
Because
it is not violation of discrimination.
if
Uh,
it's not based on religion, class, or caste or gender, like you said, then it's not discrimination. So
hmm,
it, but he has a right to be there in that class, so then it has to
yes,
be equality.
yes. So this is the correct answer. Generally, we study that right to non-discrimination, right to equality are the same. No. If the teacher is wrong or is unreasonable and asks a student to go out of the classroom, and is then also you have a fundamental right to equality. What does equality entail? Equality entails that if all of you are students and if there is no reason or justification to separate you from other students, and if there is if the justification is arbitrary, which has nothing to do with your ability to participate in the classroom, then that is a violation of right to equality, and it is not a violation of right to non-discrimination. Now let me come to add an example to this to tell you where it is a right to non-discrimination. If the same teacher comes to the classroom and asks you about your name, you say my name is this, and the teacher is asking them some more questions. On that basis, the teacher is also asking you what religion or what gender you belong to, or what caste you belong to, and you answer that. And then the teacher says that you will not sit in my classroom. Then it becomes a right to non-discrimination, because Article 15(1) and 15(2) of the Constitution says no one will be discriminated on the basis of and only of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, or any of them. Which would mean in this case that it is what I am trying to tell you here is that the manner in which a lay person will look at discrimination, because we generally use discrimination in a very broad sense, that I have been discriminated against. But discrimination legally has a very definite scope. There, what you have to show that on the basis of these five identities that if you have inherited, which you have not chosen for yourself, you are born into these categories. You are born into a religion. You are born into a caste. You are born into a race. You are born into a gender or a certain sexual orientation, or you are born into a certain place that you have not chosen for yourself. That the society would be indecent if anyone is targeted for something that they are not in control of. And this is not an omnibus term or a wide term in which more categories can be filled in. The Constitution specifies what the categories are. So in this case, if the teacher asks your name and still ejects you from the classroom, then you will, unless you are not able to show that it is definitely because of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth, which you will not be able to show, then the only claim that you have is to say that I have been treated in a non-uniform manner in compared to other students and not done anything. This is a violation of right to equality. The point that I'm trying to make here is that there is a very distinct intelligence in how our constitution has been, or how our fundamental rights are structured and named. There is a difference between fundamental right to non-discrimination and fundamental right to equality. And these distinctions should not be collapsed. Discrimination in India deals with these 5 identities, which are ascriptive, which you have not chosen, and any treatment of you on that basis is a violation of your fundamental right to non-discrimination. Now, these categories might overlap. The example that I gave you, first example was an example where your fundamental right to equality has been violated, but your fundamental right to non-discrimination has not been violated. But there can be a range of cases where there will be a violation of your fundamental right to equality as well as to non-discrimination. For instance, if in a government employment or in any private employment, if there is a category which says that employers, and this is an example that I'm giving to you, let me see if you can reason it out on both of these indices. If there is a contract which says that employers who employers who become pregnant within the first 5 years of them joining the employment will be if that the employment contract of employers who get pregnant in the first 5 years of their employment, their employment will be terminated. If this clause has to be challenged, how will you challenge it? Do you think there is a violation of fundamental right? If there is an employment contract which says that that employees who become pregnant in first 5 years of their employment will be terminated. And based on your understanding of fundamental rights, if you have to see if there is a fundamental right violation and the reason for that fundamental right violation, then what will you say? So I can see 2 hands, Vaidehi and then Anisha.
Sir, so
Absolutely.
firstly, it would depend. I'm not sure. This is actually a question. Would it depend on whether this person is employed in a private company or a government company?
Suppose generally it will not make a difference. But if it
Okay.
makes you think in a more clear manner, then let me tell you this, that suppose the person is employed in a government company. But it
Okay.
will not make a difference to your answer. But
Okay.
he's employed in a
This
government company.
is a violation of a fundamental right. It's not it's not a violation of right to equality, but it is violation of equality of opportunity in matters of public employment. Article
If
16.
you're saying violation of equality, then equality of opportunity is also a subset of equality, no? Just that is making it explicit. Or do you think
I mean,
equality of
yeah, yes,
opportunity is different from equality?
yes.
No, it is not different. Both speak about equality. Equality is a principle. For instance,
Yes,
let me tell you this. If you have a right against untouchability, you have a right against untouchability?
yes,
You have, no?
yes,
Which
yes.
is
I
Article
do.
17.
17, yes.
So will you say right against untouchability is 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 separate from right to be right to non-discrimination on basis of caste identity?
No, they're the same. They essentially refer to the same
They
right.
might be different in degrees, but both speak about non-discrimination, no?
In essence, yes.
So similarly, how is right to equality of opportunity different from right to equality?
It's not. I was wrong. They both
But I am
refer
not
to
interested.
right to
I am
work.
interested in your reasoning. What is your reasoning for saying it?
No, purely because they're established as two different articles.
I am saying that in the example that I gave to you,
Hmm.
I am only interested in your reasoning. The court is not interested in what is the answer you are giving, how you are arguing. What is the reason for it?
Because this person has the right to be has the right to be equal has the right to be employed, and they cannot be discriminated upon on the basis of their caste, religion, gender, race, or sex when being employed.
Okay, so I'll ask. So this is what is called the Socratic method that we use. That we get to the answer by asking more and more questions. There are two parts to it. First
Okay.
is that you said that there is a right to be employed. Is there a fundamental right to employment? Where is
Yes.
that fundamental right?
Article 16, equality of opportunity in matters of public employment.
So, is there a fundamental right to be employed, or does it say that the state will not make distinction on these grounds? What is a fundamental right to employment means? That
It means
anyone who does
that
not have an employment
hmm,
can approach the court and ask the court that I need an employment and the state is not providing me.
yes.
So, do we have that? If there are
Yes, we have
people
a
who
right.
are unemployed after having a degree, can they ask the court, file a writ petition and say that I have a fundamental right to employment?
I don't know.
What do you think? That if we have a population of 140 crores, can we say there is a fundamental right to employment? Or are you saying that there is a fundamental right to non-discrimination in public employment? Which means that if
I'm
you have an employment, you can't be evicted out of that employment on these five indicators.
Yeah, I'm saying that if they are employed, they cannot be evicted, they cannot be fired
Okay, so that
on
is a
the grounds
different.
of.
One will not say one has a fundamental right to employment. What one will say is that they have a fundamental right to not be discriminated and terminated on basis of these five categories.
Okay, okay, okay.
Now,
Got it,
this
sir.
brings me to the second question. Which are the five categories that against which protection is given?
Um,
Race,
religion.
religion,
Oh,
race,
okay, sorry.
caste, sex, place of
Hmm.
birth, descent.
And what is the employment contract? Does it says that employers who get pregnant, employees who get pregnant. So which of the ground is attracted here? If I
Sex.
am the state, I'll argue and respond to this that there is no fundamental right to employment, and I am not making an unreasonable distinction because the grounds on which I cannot discriminate are only five: religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth. Pregnancy is not one of the grounds. How will you respond to that?
Can I try?
Yes.
This comes
Hey,
under
let me
sex
let me first
because
first first go to the
okay,
person
okay,
who
okay.
was responding.
Okay, so, sir, pregnancy, this is as per my understanding, pregnancy would come under discrimination based on sex because the fact that this employee is pregnant directly means that this person identifies as a female and has the ability to reproduce, which only females can.
So you're absolutely correct. This is the way one can argue their case, which is this, that even if they are neutral terms of contract and it uses the word employees, but it is saying that employees who get pregnant, which category of employees get pregnant? If
Females.
we look at the effect of this, and I'm telling you about the legal terms, this is known as indirect discrimination, where they are neutral terms, but the neutral terms directly affect one particular group or one particular group of identity, which is sought to be protected under anti-discrimination law. It is that it is not that all employees get pregnant. So even if they are using a neutral term of employee, the term employees who get pregnant only refers to women because only women are capable of getting pregnant. So in effect, or by applying indirect discrimination, where one is not looking at the words, one is looking at the effect of that. One will say that there is direct targeting of women on a biological characteristic, which is only women become pregnant. So this is discriminatory against all women who might think or who might want to make a decision of personal autonomy on this. But here I'll take this forward. I'm just adding more layers to it. Now, suppose if the kind of employment that they are talking about is one which is women in a combat role, which is we are talking about women soldiers on frontiers, which is that there is this clause which says that that employees who become pregnant, their employment will be terminated. And this clause only refers to women in combat positions or employees in combat positions or soldiers who are serving in conflict zone on border. Then what do you think? Is this discrimination?
Sir, could you please repeat the question?
I am saying that you are familiar with the contract. And suppose if this contract is by this contract which says that employees who become pregnant in first 5 years of joining the service, their employment will be terminated. If this pertains to army or military, and that section of army and military where the people who are employed, they have to serve in combat positions, say in conflict zones in Ladakh or in border areas, then what will you say? So when the court looks at this issue, what they will say is this, that if one is making a differentiation on basis of any category in fundamental right to non-discrimination, then that differentiation becomes suspect unless the state through evidence proves that it is very necessary to make this differentiation in interest of the kind of service they are speaking about. So first thing is that firstly one will, if you want to challenge this notification, what you will say is this, that the state is trying to make a differentiation between employees who can get pregnant and who can't. And it is making a differentiation in effect between women and men because only women can become pregnant. So this is unreasonable and this is violation of right to equality as well as right to non-discrimination. Then because this category, which is the category of sex, is something that is a prohibited category, then this becomes a suspect classification or a category. Then it is will have to show. And if the state is able to show it, then even if suspect classification has been made on gender, then also it is not violative of right to non-discrimination, right to equality. For instance, if the state says that this stipulation is only for those army officers who are serving in combat areas, and in combat area there is a certain kind of there is a certain kind of flexibility and body that we will need to be able to do those functions. And a person who is pregnant, they cannot serve here because not only are they unable to meet the requirements of the body, but another life which is within that person is being jeopardized. Then the court might say that even if there is differentiation, that differentiation is needed for this particular purpose. Let me give you another example. We know that a person cannot be discriminated on even on basis of disability because that is arbitrary. But if the state says that we will not employ anyone as a driver in public transport if the person does not have a particular vision, one will not say that they're discriminating on the basis of, even if they are making a classification on the basis of people who are people with disability and people who don't have disability. It is connected to the kind of job that they have to perform. Where is it that this argument will fail? This argument will fail if state is making a differentiation between people with disability and people who don't have that disability in a kind of work which has nothing to do with that ability. Which means that if it is a job that has to do with teaching or thinking or writing, then one will say, what is it that the disability status has to do with their ability to perform the job? So the point that I'm trying to make here is very simple, that there is a presumption that certain classifications can't be made, but all of it will depend on the context in which that classification is being made. So in today's class, what we have learned is, the first thing is that the slides or the videos that I have made, I have spoken about all of this there. So you have to go and immerse yourself in this. But the most important thing is that one has to be, if you are thinking about law and constitutional law, one should have the ability to think deeper, look at each phrases, and always look at the context and try and reason it out. Yes. So, yes, by the way, I will take your question and then we'll end because we are past 6 o'clock.
Okay, sir, I have two quick questions. So the first one is, supposing a person who is visually challenged,
Hmm.
visually impaired, like they have vision, but it is not as good as a
Hmm.
person who is born with proper vision. Supposing this person was involved in an accident and they do not have very good vision, and this person applies for a job as a bus driver. Now, is the employer allowed to tell this person that no, we will not hire you because you do not have the proper vision required to become a bus driver as under reasonable classification?
Okay. So I'll answer this and I'll answer it through a different example so that it becomes clear to you.
Okay.
What I said is that in law, it always depends on context. Context is everything. So as we have studied that this is the right answer, this is the wrong answer, every case has two sides. And there's a way in which all cases can be argued. Now I'll give you this example in case of, I'll change the context and the differentiation will be the same, and then you will get your answer. For instance, suppose if I enter a classroom, right, it's the same example. And if I ask students about their vision, and this is a constitutional law classroom, and all of you respond, and then I say that all students whose vision is -2 or more than -2, they have to leave the classroom. And
Okay.
and all students who had their vision which is more than -2, they had to leave. Now I'm changing the context. That suppose all of you have applied for a job in Indian Air Force, right?
Yes.
And I, as an instructor, come and ask you that tell me what is your height and also tell me what is your vision. And then I tell students that all those students whose height is more than 6 feet, and also all those students whose vision is not a perfect 6 by 6, that you cannot sit for you cannot sit for an assessment test in Air Force. Now, where do you think there is a violation of right to equality? In the first case, there is a violation of right to equality because here, look at it. I am dividing the group on the basis of same thing. In class also, I asked what is your height. I said that everyone who is above 6, they can't attend the class. Everyone whose power is more than -2, they can't attend the class. When it came to assessment for people who are interested in going to Indian Air Force, I asked the same thing. I divided it into two groups: people who are above 6, and also people who don't have a perfect vision, they can't sit for written assessment. The differentiation is the same. But what has changed? The context. In first case, in the former case, you will say that the distinction is arbitrary because it has no connection with our ability to participate in the classroom. If we have come here to study constitutional law, what does it have to do with our ability to grasp the nuances of constitutional law if we are of a particular height or if we don't have a perfect vision? But in context of Air Force, this becomes a reasonable classification where what one will say, I'll say that the ability that I want people, I will only judge people who meet the criteria because the cockpit that is there, it cannot accommodate people who
Who
have
are
more
taller
than
than
6 feet
6 feet.
height. And we will not take chances in our national security with someone who might be very intelligent who does not have a perfect vision, because the requirement or the ability to serve as a flying member of Air Force is contingent on these physical qualities. So even if this also brings us to non-discrimination, if in non-discrimination we say that these are things that we have not chosen, which is our religion, our caste, our place of birth, then one will say we have also not chosen our height. But again, I said it becomes suspect classification because there can be categories where that is a requirement, even if you have not chosen it. For instance, if I'm scouting for a basketball team, and if I tell people that people who are less than 4 feet, we will not take them, even if it is very uncomfortable, in that context, just as a person who has no vision cannot be a driver, a person who is 4 feet cannot play in a basketball league because there can be conditions put.
Okay.
So the answer is you always look at the context to see if the differentiation makes sense or not. If it is a reasonable conclusion, then no matter what is the basis for categorization, it can be legal. And this is
Okay.
what lawyers do, which is why every case has minimum two sides to it. Because all depends on your own mind, how you are able to argue that case.
Okay. Yes, sir. And my second doubt is, okay, supposing there are a group of waiters working in a high-end 5-star restaurant, and one of these waiters decides that as per their own fashion choice, they decide to dye their hair a bright color, say red, and everyone else has black hair. And now, can the employer fire this person because their hair is red and it looks quote unquote absurd because they stand out and it does not
So
look
here also I can
presentable?
tell you this. Suppose I'll make this more legal for you, which is that if there is a contract regulation which says that waiters cannot dye their hair or there cannot be any tattoos, and if a
Okay.
person chooses to express themselves, which is a part of their fundamental right to speech and expression, right?
Yes.
By coloring their hair. This is the way in which they will foreground their case, that they have a fundamental right to express, and they choose to dye their hair or to sport tattoos, and they claim that they have been terminated because of that basis, and they want to challenge this employment regulation. There also it depends. Let me tell you, if you are speaking about waiters, there can be different categories, no? My job here is not to give you the right answer, but how to think about it. For instance, people can be employed in various categories in a restaurant, right? They can
Yes.
be chefs, they can be sous chefs. Sous chefs are
Yes.
people who are assistant chefs.
Working under the head chef.
Yes. And then there can be front desk jobs. What is a front desk job? A person who is a receptionist
Making
or a person who is a
reservations,
server.
keeping track. Yes.
Yes. So there are different roles. There are roles which does not require them to come face to face with customer. There can be roles which require them to come face to face with customers.
Yes.
I think if this kind of regulation applies to chefs and sous chefs, then they can say that it is unreasonable or it is
Okay.
wrong or it is violation of equality, because they will say that this is arbitrary. You are making a classification between people on basis of their hair color, where I am not in a front desk job. my role is in the kitchen. So what does it have to do if I have a tattoo or not? But if someone is a server, then the employer can say that servers have been given a particular uniform and there is a certain regulation, because we think that in our notion, the way to come across as being well groomed requires that there has to be a certain uniformity in dress and the way they go about their business,
Okay.
because these are front facing jobs. And if anyone is sporting a tattoo which is visible in a front desk job, or anyone who has colored their hair in a very
Obscure, bright
in
color.
a very conspicuous way, blonde or red, then this does not go with the requirement of uniformity that we have for servers. But if they have this for chef, it can be argued, chef will say that I am not in a front desk role.
Yes.
So my fundamental right to express myself should also be accommodated within these regulations. But these are not, there are other ways in which one can say. I am just telling you that, again, pointing to the fact that in your example also, the more questions you ask about context, the closer it will take you to your answer. Okay.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you all very
Thank
much.
you, sir.